has been in some form of coordination with our agricultural activities that we had on our lands. And artisanal mining for centuries had coexisted with the use of land for agricultural activities. So when you take a look at, you go to places like Obuasi where they have conducted these activities for long, you will see that they used not to do this form of surface mining where they just scrape the top. And as we discussed earlier this morning, they were more of going underground instead of using large tracts of land to get the gold. So this has been our process and our means of coexisting. And the minerals and its exploitation had been in a form of coexisting with the agric. Anytime our farming season is off, you find some of these community people going into artisanal mining, and it is something which had been with us. So gold mining wasn't anything that you could say was so illegal. It was something that coexisted, and we didn't have the problems that we used to. But what do we have now? We've seen a drastic increase in the artisanal mining activities. And if you just take a look at this data, within just the past 30 or so years, as around 1993, we were having approximately, this is the global ASM employment data, we were having somewhere around 6 million people involved in artisanal mining activities. But between 1993 to 2017, we have over 150 million people now depending on artisanal mining activities. And it is also reported that about 70 to 80% of the people who conduct this form of activities are mostly in the informal sector, with 40 to 50% of them being women. Again, if you take a look at the comparative employment amongst countries, we have the highest being China, directly working about 15 million people there, then followed by Tanzania. Then we have the almighty Ghana also following with about 1.1 million people. And we have the other countries also following as well with those figures. So a picture, or looking into Ghana, just specifically into Ghana, we have, as I indicated, about 1 million direct workers. And it is also supporting about 4.5 million people who are either family members or who are also dependent on it. So its economic impact is that at least we have about 5.5 million people that are benefiting from this activity. And this was data somewhere around 2018. So we can tell that 8 years from now, obviously, this data would definitely have increased. So what is accounting for this increase? And it is very important that we understand the historical drivers. And when Ghana, we moved into the third gold rush, that is within the period of the 90s, 80s, when we started the structural adjustment program. One of the things that we did was to transfer from these state gold mining to these private multinational mining companies. And as part of the transition, we also decided to move largely from the underground mining to the surface mining, which meant that people or communities whose lands were given as concessions within these mining areas were going to be affected. So if you take a look at data, Strategies report for 2008, it tells you that somewhere in the Wassa West region, district, in the Takwa area, about 60% of the landmass of the district had been given out to concessions to 8 multinational mining companies. The effect of this was that, well, community people who had their lands were now displaced as a result of the large-scale mining activities, and the large tracts of farmlands were taken over for these mining activities for these companies, meaning that the livelihoods of the people and their incomes were definitely going to be lost. So yes, I would want to, I'm building up on the genesis of this, the increase in the numbers. So when you take a look at Shraj's first report on the mining sector on human rights issues, these were some of its findings as of that time on large-scale mining activities that were going on within the country. There was widespread pollution of community water sources. So pollution of water bodies is not something that started just about 7 or 8 or 10 years ago. As far back as 2008, Shraj in its maiden report had documented it. Loss of farmlands and livelihoods, inadequate compensation for destroyed properties, unacceptable livelihood replacement schemes, health problems, excesses by security agencies and the security contractors of the mining companies, artisanal mining and the illegal form, and we should pay particular attention to this. Artisanal mining, that is those that were registered or that were formalized, and the illegal form, generally known as Galamsey, is pervasive in almost all the mining areas visited. The small-scale miners do the mining the same way as the so-called Galamsey miners do. The distinction between the two is therefore more of form and not of substance. So this data has been with us for the past 20 years. So now if I hear that, oh, I'm a licensed gold miner, so I'm doing responsible mining. We've been told clearly by Shraj as far back as 2008 that you couldn't distinguish the forms of both. And as a result of that, it led to some push and pull dynamics within the sector. And so those communities that were affected by these large-scale mining activities, land dispossession, poverty and unemployment, collapse of traditional livelihoods as farming and even the mining activity, and displacement and economic exclusion now forced these people into going into illegal mining activities that we are now seeing in its very detrimental stages. Now looking at the green column, so as the push factors exist, we also have the pull factors, the other factors that are attracting other people to also come and join the sector. And this morning, director indicated that now gold is hovering around 4,000 USD. So the quick financial returns and the low barriers to entry, the regulation within the sector has been weak to the extent that people find it motivating. And Darrow made the point that now when people who are into provision store gather some money, they give it to someone to go and conduct mining activities, and rising global demand for gold. So these are the factors that has brought about this increase in the numbers that we have. So even before this menace started, mining in its large-scale form was detrimental to us, and that is a fact which exists. Yes, so these are some abandoned pits. When you look at Shraj's report as far back as 2008, with regards to large-scale mining, we were having abandoned pits, and so the small-scale miners are equally doing same. Again, excesses by security agencies and the security contractors of these mining companies. When communities who want to be farmers want to take hold of their farms, we find state security personnel acting to the benefits of these mining companies, beating them up, intimidating them, and forcing them to accept these mining activities at the expense of their own. The only skill which they know is either cocoa farming or farming in itself. And so if your brother, your father is beaten by these security personnel, do you think next time he will try to hold on to his farm? He will give it out. That person would definitely want to leave. Yes, so water pollution. Shraj equally reported that they had, out of the 28 communities that they were in, 22 of its water bodies were already polluted as a result of mining. Cyanide spillages was also recorded in mining communities, and there was evidence that mercury was widely used in small-scale mining in the communities visited. I'm just laying this historical background. So that picture on the right is a picture we took ourselves, WACAM, as far back as 2009 or so, when there was a cyanide spillage. When you go to mining communities where these water bodies have been polluted, you see these signages, everything over there. Okay, so what do we have? Now we've moved away from the pickaxe and pan, and when communities were self-employed and many families could easily go into this artisanal mining and still have their farmlands intact. Now, as I indicated, there are high demands. There's an influx of capitalist investors seeking profits now in the system, use of heavy machinery, and which all these are known. And Lanuzo and Aziaba, they now call the current mining that we are in as a capitalist mechanized mining system. It is no longer a small-scale mining activity that we are witnessing in the system. And as a result of the increase in the numbers and people involved in it, if you take a look at the comparison between large-scale gold production and that of the small scale, you can see that from 2000 steadily up to 2018, in the small scale production has increased drastically. And this is also as a result of what I had talked about earlier. So now the large scale miners and the small scale miners are almost at the same level of. Yes, so the evidence, I'm supposed to talk about the social and the environmental, so I'll still limit myself to that. So the evidence of the rapid mechanized systems. So data that I had indicates that within the southern part of Ghana, between the period 2011 to 2015, we have had about 10,907 hectares of land being used for artisanal mining. As at even 2015, we had gathered over 36,000 hectares. When we talk about the forest reserves as well, we had only about 53 hectares that were affected by these mining activities. However, by 2015, we had moved to over 603 hectares that will be attacked by these form of mining activities. And the destruction of the water bodies have been well explained today, and so I wouldn't go back. And we've seen a number of our water systems being shut down. Okay, so for me, I work with the community, so issues of farmer displacement and landlessness is dear to me. Now, cocoa farmers are now losing their lands, and farmers are being pressured to sell the land to wealthy miners. As far back as 2013, 2014, some community people in Achem Saman were forced to sell their lands to mining companies for as low as 1,000 Ghana cedis for an acre of cocoa farm. All because if you do not give out the farm, you might wake up early in the morning and you see that your farm has been destroyed. So you had no, and the other issue also is that those who also gave their lands out and are joining farmlands, the chemicals that were used in these artisanal mining activities also affected the yields of these cocoa farms. And therefore, you holding on to your farm as a source of livelihood no longer existed. So Dr. Randy Abe, the CEO of Cocoa Board, indicated that 30 hectares of cocoa farm lands have been destroyed, and 50 hectares are currently at risk of destruction by Galamsey. For me, it is not just illegal mining or small-scale mining. Also, the large-scale miners are equally to be held accountable for this. And health and safety issues have also been well discussed, but I would want to dwell into issue of mercury content. So as studies have also indicated that the mercury levels in miners, as conducted in Dunquanofin, was almost twice that of farmers. So which tells you that definitely these people are have these mercury in their system, and who knows, in the near future they will develop all sorts of diseases. And women are also more exposed and less protected. They have very low protection equipment to work with. If you've been to such places, there's no form of protection. They either carry the things, children are being used as labor, and also they are so injury prone. People are dying in these areas. So other social impacts, loss of livelihoods. So yes, we've discussed this extensively. Yes, one other issue which I would also want to touch on is social fragmentation. Now, one thing that mining, whether illegal, small scale, or large scale, is bringing into communities is disputes among families, disputes among traditional leaders, to the extent that now you have communities that coexisted very well are now divided when mining activities come. Because you have a section saying they will accept mining, and you have another section saying they wouldn't accept mining. So now you go into communities and you have the people and their chiefs in conflict or in dispute just because of the decision of whether or not mining activities. So it is weakening our traditional leadership system and authority. Issues of gender-based violence is on the high. Definitely where money is, there are lots of people there. And so issues of gender-based violence, it's equally increasing as well. So one may ask, don't we have the laws to protect us from all these issues that we have discussed so far? I bet you there are a plethora of laws which I can't count. So just within 2 slides, I can count about 20 laws that more or less are regulating, and national policies that are regulating the sector. We've other national policies that we have. We have the mining and minerals and mining policy, artisanal small-scale gold mining, multilateral. So we have a whole lot of policies. So why are we still here? Are the laws addressing the system? Again, we've had militarized fight against Galamsey. We've discussed some of them this morning. We talked about, as far back as 2006, with President Kufuor's time, we had the fight against illegal mining. Around 2013, we had Operation Flashout. We've had Operation Vanguard. We've had Operation Halt. I think Halt has been 1, 2, or 3. We've had Galamsey, and now we have NIMOS. So after having all these militarized fights, I'm struggling to believe that NIMOS may be very successful this time around, because maybe we are not so sure what they will do differently. But then moving forward, why have we failed to really win the war against this? One, community people have the perception that these organized criminal networks within the mining sector, they are so powerful, and that they are able to even influence the military people on the ground. With whatever means, I believe it's all our guess. Then one thing that we are also doing is exposing soldiers to corruption risks could compromise the nation's security and infrastructure. We are constantly sending them to places where they are being exposed to these monies, and they come out and they may not be able to really implement and enforce the laws that they are supposed to. Other issues which has also come up is the fact that they've been corrupted. But my issue is I've not heard or seen any military or any task force that we've leveled charges of corruption against, of assisting these these illegal miners, bringing those people to book. So what we do is to withdraw, then we send a new group of people in, then we withdraw, then we send a new group of people with the same accusation against them, but no one has been held accountable to date. So eventually, if I'm to be someone in the service, if I'm asked to go there, I'll feel very happy to go, because I believe even if something goes wrong, I will not be held accountable. So why has it also not worked? Again, I took this code. I'm almost rounding up. And according to published research, certain political and traditional authorities have been implicated in illegal ASM operations. This is something which is well read and well documented. And I would also want to take a look at the Otumfuo, when the multimedia group visited him and presented a copy of Erasmus Gold, Distraction for Gold copy. He indicated that Galamsey operations are very complex, with a lot of people involved. We will never succeed in the fight if we approach it lackadaisically. There are some collaborators in corridors of power, as well as some politicians and some businessmen involved. They own excavators used in this operation, a lot of them. This is the Asantehene with this statement. So, if the military is finding it difficult to really enforce the laws in these mining areas, then I believe there are so many questions that we will need to ask. So what do the realities within the communities that I work in? So how the state sees itself. We have the president, we have the Regional Security Council, we have DISEC, we have local government institutions, and we have our members of parliament, all in place to help us fight the mining activities. But what do we see on the ground? Bulldozers, excavators, foreigners, mining in broad daylight. With all the powers that we have, but they are still doing it in broad daylight. Institutions responsible for law and order are regulatory agencies. Now, what do we see? Communities are watching helplessly because they have been intimidated. They have been unlawfully arrested and also detained by virtue of the fact that when they tried protecting their properties from destruction by these mining companies, the mining companies or these illegal mining operators now go ahead and rather complain to the police, and our people are now arrested and placed before the court. And I've had so many instances that I am in court defending people who were trying to protect their lands. And through that, they were reported, complaints were made to the police. They went to the police station, and the police told them that go and take pictures of the destruction that you are talking about before we go. When they went there and the mining company saw them taking the pictures, they also went and reported the community people to the police, and the police quickly came and arrested them, the same people. This is not a story. This is something which is happening, and it happened. And we are dealing with all these issues. People are being detained, arrested, and lawsuits against them. And so if you are a family member of mine, do you think I will encourage you to protect our farmlands? Again, the state is fighting Galamsey. But what do communities people perceive? There is regulatory capture, because they see the regulatory agencies more or less supporting and being in bed with the illegal mining activities or with the mining companies, and that is what they perceive. So what are some of the recommendations that I would want to propose? One, first of all, let's recognize that mining activities, whether one is given a lease or does not have a lease, your right to mine does not supersede one's surface rights. And therefore, the fact that you've been given a mining lease doesn't mean that automatically you have the surface rights of the person. The person may accept compensation for the land, but if the person refuses, the person should not be compelled to accept mining on his or her land. If the state deems it very fit, it can go via a compulsory acquisition and take that. But until that is done, community people should not be forced to give out their land, and their right to say no to mining should be respected. Again, no-go zones for mining. We shouldn't say that, well, prospecting and exploration activities should not be done in forest areas. And what about those mining in the forest areas? They should also not be given the permission to do so. So let's start placing no-go zones for these areas. Information that the host mining communities need should also be given to them. We should publish, and I've advocated for this. Now that we are trying to curb this illegal mining business, government should publish all mineral rights concession holders in every district and let us know where they are, so that a community person and community people can easily take this list and use it to know that, okay, this company has been given a license, this has not been given a license, but such information is not available to the communities. Again, the free, prior, and informed consent of communities should be internalized in the Minerals and Mining Act. When communities say no, they don't want mining, it should be accepted. If they say yes, they want it to, it should be done responsibly for that. Last but not the least, I believe that we've called for citizens, joint citizens mass action. In fact, if there is a form of a regulatory capture or even a state capture, it is only through a joint citizen or mass action that our decision makers will listen to us. And last but not the least, as we try to sanitize the system, let's place a halt on the issuance of licenses of mining of any form, whether large, small. We should hold on as we sanitize the system. Thank you very much.